Night, and I'm with the Zonta District 1 organization, and we are doing a series of programs covering Zonta and some of its various aspects. In an earlier presentation, you learned a bit about the Zonta Foundation for Women and its support of Zonta's educational projects. Tonight, we're very pleased to have Dr. Ann Rubis, who is the chair of the Zonta Foundation for Women Development Committee. She will offer more details on the foundation itself and its support of Zonta's international service projects. A past District 1 governor, Ann has served on various international committees, including public relations and communication, membership, and Centennial. She has had the opportunity to co-create the Zonta Says No campaign to end violence against women and the Global Membership Drive. She was elected to the Zonta International Nominating Committee last biennium. She is past District 1 Foundation Ambassador, currently serving as the district's endowment specialist. And this is her second biennium as the chair of the Development Committee. Ann, welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you, everyone, for joining this informational session, part of the Recruit and Retain Younger Members series. Tonight, we will build upon the information that was already shared in the previous 3 videos, concentrating on Zonta's commitment to international service. You will also learn about Zonta's initiatives to secure our organization's future so that we can continue to build a better world for women and girls. The Zonta Foundation for Women is the sole source of funding for Zonta International's approved charitable and educational programs. The Zonta International Foundation was established in 1984 and incorporated in 1985. In 2020, to increase visibility and better reflect our mission and commitment to building that better world for women and girls, the name was changed to the Zonta Foundation for Women. The foundation is governed by the officers and directors that members elect at the International Convention held every 2 years. It is comprised of 3 committees: development, investment, and finance. The Development Committee promotes the foundation and works with district foundation ambassadors to ensure that Zonta meets its biennial fundraising goals and secures its future. For the 2022 to 2024 biennium, our fundraising goal is $4,573,000. This goal was set by International President Uta Schultz during her biennium as President-elect and approved by the Zonta Foundation for Women Finance Committee and Board. This total will fund all of Zonta's educational programs and international projects. The 4 international projects listed on this slide were adopted during convention in June 2022. By adopting the projects, members commit to funding them. The funds raised support the projects of the current biennium. If we do not raise the full amount, we must use reserves to meet our financial commitments. It is important that we do not rely on reserves and raise the money during the current biennium. If the proposed dollar amount is not raised for the international service projects or educational programs, the Rose Fund, as an unrestricted fund, would supply the difference. The foundation's revenues come from donations made by Zonta clubs, members, and friends of Zonta. Clubs are strongly encouraged to give at least 1/3 of funds raised locally to the foundation, keeping up to 2/3 for their local service programs. 100% of donations made to the foundation go directly to program support. Zonta International has the highest rating given by Charity Navigator, Platinum Transparency given by the Candid Council on Foundations, and is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. The International Service Fund supports projects that have provided training, education, health, sanitation, agriculture, and microcredit assistance to women primarily through projects implemented by agencies of the United Nations and other recognized non-governmental organizations, also known as NGOs. Since 1923, Zonta has provided nearly $19.2 million to projects benefiting women in 35 countries. So how are projects selected? United Nations agencies and reputable non-governmental organizations submit proposed international projects to the president-elect for consideration. Projects may be submitted for consideration for a second biennium of support. However, there are always many new proposals submitted. After careful deliberation and consultation with the partnering organizations, the president-elect presents her selected projects to the Zonta Foundation for Women Finance Committee, which approves the necessary expenditures. Following Zonta International and Zonta Foundation for Women board approval, the project brought before the convention body, which votes for adoption. As I previously mentioned, the foundation collects donations for the current biennium's projects and programs. If donations do not total the full budget, reserves are used to fulfill Zonta's obligations. Because Zonta is fiscally responsible, no more money is committed to agencies than what is already in reserves. Zonta International has had a very close connection to the United Nations and their agencies since the founding of the UN in 1945, when Zonta was one of the first NGOs invited to partner with them. Zonta International has been a UNICEF USA partner for over 50 years, beginning in 1972 with the funding of mobile medical units in hard-to-reach rural areas of Ghana. Let's learn a bit more about this long-standing partnership.
50 years ago, when Zonta International began its partnership with UNICEF USA, the world was a very different place for women and girls. In the United States, the women's rights movement was in full swing. The Equal Rights Amendment had just passed both houses of Congress, and leaders of feminism's second wave were making their voices heard. Around the world, however, women's voices were often less audible. Women in Switzerland had only just earned the right to vote. Globally, 543 million women were illiterate, and women in Asia and Africa regularly worked 13 more hours a week than men. Denied their basic rights in many regions of the world, women and girls faced enormous challenges to their health and well-being. The average life expectancy for a woman was 60. Child marriage was much more common, and access to birth control much more limited. For Zonta members, concern for the welfare and rights of women and girls around the world has always been part of their DNA. But it wasn't until 1972, at Zonta's convention, that the organization issued a formal resolution to incorporate global service. Every Zonta club has the responsibility to support, through both monetary contributions and personal service, projects to its own community, but also Zonta International service projects directed toward the world community. That same year, Zonta and UNICEF USA launched their first project together, mobile medical units to serve the health needs of children and mothers in hard-to-reach areas of Ghana. It would be the first of many projects for the partnership.
There are so many wonderful examples of the positive impacts of the partnership between Zonta International and UNICEF USA starting in 1972. More recently in Afghanistan, about 4 million women of childbearing age were targeted for tetanus vaccination. In 2003, Zonta International helped to support 4 cities and 8 rural districts in Kabul province. And then from 2008 to 2016, Zonta and UNICEF's partnership in Rwanda helped to contribute to a nation free of AIDS and new HIV infection among children, adolescents, women, and families.
Over decades, Zonta's contribution has led to thousands of saved and improved lives in countries like Burkina Faso, Afghanistan, Nepal. Together, these two storied organizations have helped girls access an education in Madagascar, helped combat child marriage around the world, and created the Well Water Project in Sri Lanka that spurred the creation of the Zonta International Foundation, now the Zonta Foundation for Women. Most recently, Zonta and UNICEF USA's partnership has reached across the mountains of Peru to address the needs of indigenous and rural adolescents helping them avoid childhood pregnancies and grow in an environment supported by social-emotional learning and safe from violence.
Some of the greatest progress has come from simply including girls in the conversation and ensuring their participation in decision-making. At UNICEF, we're ramping up our partnerships with women and girls networks to do more of exactly that, listening, bringing girls to investment roundtables, and creating spaces for their ideas and voices. Our next steps must include asking girls when we design programs for them and with them, will this make a difference? How can we improve? And when we're implementing those programs, were you satisfied with our support? What needs to happen next?
So, 50 years ago, for women and girls in the United States.
This slide shows the 16 countries where Zonta International and its partners are building a better world for women and girls this biennium. Let's look briefly at each project and see how the challenges brought on by the COVID pandemic are being addressed. As you just saw in the video, the Adolescent Girls Health and Protection in Peru project seeks to guarantee the rights of Indigenous and rural adolescents, especially girls, and respond to their health needs by preventing pregnancy, addressing mental health concerns, and providing protection from violence. The emergency state in Peru, due to COVID-19, made it necessary to reformulate strategies and interventions to address the following new challenges: reopening schools after 2 years of closure, dealing with new types of violence resulting from the use of technology, and dealing with the loss of family members and its financial implications. Since the pandemic, health providers have completed adolescent healthcare trainings, schools have implemented violence prevention protocols, and teachers have received training. Guidelines for comprehensive mental health care for children and adolescents who are victims of sexual violence were developed and approved at the national level. As part of a national campaign, adolescents and youth are being empowered about mental health, their right to health services, and the prevention of all types of violence. A mobile app is also available to report cases of violence. Zonta is proud to be a part of this project, the first UNICEF project focusing on girls between the ages of 12 to 17. Until recently, UNICEF's program interventions have focused on younger aged girls and adults, leaving adolescents very vulnerable. The project, delivering survivor-centered response to gender-based violence survivors in Papua New Guinea and Timor-Leste, seeks to ensure that all women and girls in these two countries live life free from violence. These two countries have the highest level of lifetime prevalence of intimate partner violence in Asia and the Pacific regions. In both countries, the COVID pandemic emerged later than in the rest of the Asia Pacific. The resulting restriction of movement, reduction in community interaction, and closure of services not only increased exposure to gender-based violence for women and girls, but also limited access to services and support. To meet these challenges, several program strategies are being adopted, namely establishing remote delivery of startup activities, assessing health sector capacity, and developing training packages for health providers. Also, reviewing and updating resources such as referral pathways and addressing travel restrictions. Since 2016, Zonta International has confronted the barriers girls face in receiving an education in Madagascar through the Let Us Learn project. One of the poorest countries in the world, Madagascar is prone to natural disasters, which further impede economic growth of the agricultural economy and make it even more difficult to escape poverty and prioritize education for children. Building on the success of the Let Us Learn project, this biennium, Zonta International, in collaboration with UNICEF USA, will partner on the Engaging Girls on Climate Change in Madagascar project. This project will enable children, particularly girls, to learn in a safe and inclusive environment and empower them to take actions to build climate-resilient communities. Girls and teachers will be trained on water conservation, environmental education, and menstrual health and hygiene. This project will be launched in 5 pilot schools. Gardens will be managed by children's clubs under the supervision of school teachers. Community members will be educated about the impacts of climate change. Teachers will receive training on the development of disaster risk plans to enable learning to continue during natural disasters. This project will not only provide immediate and short-term impact, but will be sustainable in the long run. The global program to end child marriage, focusing on 12 countries in Africa and Asia, was introduced during the 2018 to 2020 biennium in honor of Zonta's centennial anniversary. There are 20 Zonta clubs in 7 of the 12 countries included in this project. Zonta International and its partnering organizations realize that what works in one country may not in another. The countries included in this project were selected not only because they have a high prevalence of child marriage, but also because their governments agreed to work together with UN agencies and NGOs to end this practice. To ensure that Zonta's projects remain on track and are fiscally responsible, regular reports and videos are made available by the agencies we partner with. Zonta International representatives also travel to the various countries on site visits. In 2017, then International President Sonia Honig-Cho traveled to Nepal to assess the International Service Project, The Future We Want, creating sustainable foundations for addressing human trafficking and unsafe migration in Nepal. Let's take a look at that visit.
I was very excited to go to Sindulpachuk. That is 3.5 hours from here by car. It was raining heavily when we started. The roads were not in the best condition, but that doesn't matter really, because what is important is to meet the ladies, to see the beneficiaries of our project, to see their eyes and see they are happy, and to see that they dare to say, they dare to describe their situation of their lives and how they can be helped. To meet the beneficiaries is really amazing, because I had studied all the material about what the program is about, what we are planning to do, but to meet these women in real life and hear their stories, that makes me very proud of being a part of helping them to shape their own future, to give them a possibility to change their story, to give them the tools to perhaps create a company of their own, or to get an employment.
म चाहिँ 13-14 वर्षको उमेर हुँदाखेरि चाहिँ भारत गएको हो। त्यहाँ गाउँका एउटा दिदी पनि जानु भएको रहेछ पहिला पनि, अनि त्यसपछि फेरि त्यो दिदीले चाहिँ जाउँ भनेर भन्नुभयो। सानो बेला दिदीको साथ लाएर गएँ, अनि त्यसपछि त्यहाँ चाहिँ बच्चाहरू हेर्नु पर्थ्यो। अनि बच्चाहरू हेर्दा ओर्दा यसो उनीहरूले कि त्यो बच्चाहरू रोयो अरे भने त्यो उनीहरूसँग के हो गर्न सकेन भने चाहिँ अलिक गालीहरू गर्थेँ। अनि त्यसपछि त्यस्तै गर्दा गर्दै 1 वर्ष जति बसेँ, अनि त्यसपछि फर्केर आएँ। अनि अहिले चाहिँ अनि कम्प्युटर ट्रेनिङ गरिदिँदैछ। अनि एफसीबाट चाहिँ वैदेशिक रोजगारबाट फर्केर आएका महिलाहरूलाई चाहिँ कम्प्युटर ट्रेनिङ अनि त्यसपछि सिलाइको ट्रेनिङहरू दिन लगाइरहेको छ भन्ने कुरा चाहिँ साथीहरूबाट थाहा पाएँ। अनि त्यसपछि मलाई चाहिँ 2-3वटा ट्रेनिङहरूमध्ये चाहिँ कम्प्युटर नै अलिक बढी उपयुक्त लागेको कारणले म चाहिँ कम्प्युटर ट्रेनिङतिरै प्रवेश गरेको छु। वैदेशिक रोजगारमा पनि कम्प्युटर ज्ञान भएपछि त सबै कुरो थाहा पाइन्छ। अनि यहीँ पनि काम गर्न सकिन्छ, विदेशसम्म जानु मन छैन।
They were fantastic women, and they all wanted to tell their stories and wanted us to know how it had been to go to Kuwait, Malaysia, and what they had met there, and then they wanted to come back. I feel it's very important that the women are coming back to their families and have their own relationships, but at the same time they can make an earning, and they should, all of them should be independent. What we have invested is well used here. I have been very impressed by the program that we are supporting. I have seen so many different parts, because this program is a comprehensive program. That's not only one thing, because if we really want to make a change that is continuing, you need to work on very different fields and make them work together. Cooperation with UN Women is really extraordinary. I can see that they are doing all these things that we signed a contract for 2 years ago.
What is your name?
My name is Zonta.
And how did you volunteer to go in this training for women's empowerment?
मैले सशक्तिकरणको अलिक केही कुरा जानेको थियो र त्यो आफ्नो मनमा लागेका कुरा यहाँ लेख्छु भनेर।
समाजमा भएका महिला धेरै हिंसाहरू हुन्छ, महिलाहरू हिंसाहरूमा महिलाहरूलाई हिंसा गर्नु हुँदैन भन्ने कुरा थाहा हुनुपर्छ।
हाम्रो कार्यक्रम सुरु गर्नुभन्दा अगाडि हाम्रो जोन्ताको प्रेसिडेन्ट पनि आउनु भएको छ अनि युएन वुमनको प्रतिनिधिज्यूहरू पनि हुनुहुन्छ।
I had one more about trafficking, because you said that the trafficking has gone down. But is that because you don't know, because they go to other countries now, or what has made it go down?
When we have the policies and the laws, we also need to inform everyone about this so they are aware of it. We need also to advocate so it is followed. And finally, we need to enforce the laws.
म पनि इन्डिया गएँ। इन्डिया गएर 2-3 वर्ष मैले एउटा हाउसमेटको रूपमा काम गरेँ। जति मैले कमाउँथेँ मलाई आफूलाई खर्च मात्र हुन्थ्यो। अनि त्यसपछि इजिप्ट गएर मैले 6 वर्ष काम गरेँ। कहिलेकाहीँ चाहिँ दुःख लाग्थ्यो जब हामीले सन्चो हुँदैन थियो भने त्यति बेला हामीले औषधि दिन्थ्यो तर रेस्ट चाहिँ पाउँदैन थियो त्यति बेला। अनि माउन्ट एभरेस्ट भनेको त्यो ठाउँ हो जुन ठाउँबाट बोलेको आवाज संसारभरि फैलिन्छ अरे, त्यहाँबाट बोलेको आवाज संसारभरि एकदम स्ट्रङ हुन्छ अरे। मैले त्यो सुनेर त्यसपछि म माउन्ट एभरेस्ट चढ्छु, म जसरी पनि चढ्छु भन्ने सोच्ने र यसलाई कसरी रोकथाम गर्ने त, यसलाई विरोध गर्नुपर्छ, यसलाई आवाज उठाउनुपर्छ भन्ने कन्सेप्टमा थिएँ। यो आवाज लिएर मैले एभरेस्ट चढेको थिएँ र सक्सेस पनि भयो। गाह्रो थियो तर पनि सक्सेस भयो।
In 2019, 4 representatives visited Madagascar to see the Zonta-supported Let Us Learn project firsthand. Most recently, in October-November of 2022, Zonta International President Uta Schultz visited India, one of the countries included in our global program to end child marriage. President Uta, representing Zonta International, along with 7 other project supporters making up the steering committee, visited cities in the state of Odisha. The guests were led into the community building to meet with adolescents and people from the village. With 1/3 of all marriages in India involving child brides, India has the highest number of such marriages in the world. The participants of the site visit had the opportunity to talk to the young adolescent girls about their experiences. Many girls reported that their fathers had passed away, mostly due to COVID, leaving their mothers to struggle to feed all of the children. In this situation, child marriage comes down to a mother forced to sacrifice one child to save the others. The dowry is a condition of marriage where durable goods, cash, or property is given to the bride's family, to the groom and his family. This situation results in a woman being tied economically and socially to her husband. Dowry can be used as a threat or hostage type of situation to receive even more money from the bride's family. Dowry-related violence against women like fraud, cruelty, suicide, and dowry murder are common. President Uta learned about several components of India's action plan. One of them is to eliminate marriage. As part of that plan to eliminate marriage is called Advika. Every girl is unique. This program was launched in partnership with UNICEF and UNFPA on October 11th, 2020, the International Day of the Girl Child. Advika reaches out to adolescent girls and boys and informs them about their rights regarding sexual and reproductive health, gender, child protection, nutrition, and more. In this picture are the adolescents who shared their thoughts and reported about their experiences with this program. President Uta is in the center. WhatsApp groups of peer leaders were formed during the pandemic so girls could raise their voices and receive the right messaging on the issues affecting them. On the top right of that slide, you could see the Advika logo and tagline. Declarations and signs indicating the status of a village as being child marriage free are seen along the streets with the hashtag Say No to Child Marriage. On January 3rd, 2022, the administration of the District of Ganjam finally declared their village was free of marriage. In addition, a law department order was passed in Odisha to display a notice banning child marriage at religious places and institutions. Verification of proof of age for both parties before marriage is mandatory in all temples. This is particularly noteworthy as all marriages must be conducted in temples. Now, 10,000 villages have declared themselves child marriage free. The group went on to meet with representatives from district and state for feedback and exchange. Traveling on the way back to the capital, New Delhi, the steering committee was invited by the Indian Ministry of Health and Family Welfare to share their impressions and give feedback. The takeaways. To be successful, the fight to end child marriage must be embraced at the state and village levels. Support systems like adolescent-friendly hospitals must be made available. A budget must be secured to adequately fund services. Donations to the Zonta Foundation for Women's Endowment Funds ensure Zonta's future efforts to achieve a world based on equality and free of violence for all women and girls. Another way to ensure Zonta's future is through planned and legacy giving. As I mentioned previously, the Rose Fund provides additional funds to programs not fully supported by fund-specific contributions and enables the foundation to support new and pilot programs like the Women in STEM scholarships. The endowment fund provides a long-term source of income for the foundation. Interest and earnings from the investments in this fund provide the foundation with an annual stream of income to use as it sees fit. The principle of the gift is never spent, allowing the fund to grow over time. The Amelia Earhart Fellowship Endowment Fund provides a long-term source of income for the Amelia Earhart Fellowship Program. The interests and earnings from the investments in this fund provide an annual stream of income to support additional fellowships. The principle of the gift is never spent, allowing the fund to grow over time. This biennium, $40,000 will be used to help support the Amelia Earhart Fellowship Program. Donations to the endowment funds do not count toward our biennial goal, since that money is invested with the generated income utilized for future projects and programs. Only the donations made to the project and program funds count toward our fundraising goal, as that money supports our service projects and educational programs for the current biennium. Over the years, I have been asked, what am I most proud of? The remarkable accomplishments of Zonta's educational scholars captured my heart as the District 1 Foundation Ambassador from 2016 to 2020. The impact that Zonta International's global program to end child marriage has had on Zontans around the world has amazed me as the chair of the Developing Committee since 2020. For the first time in Zonta's history, an international project inspired members in all districts to look at child marriage within their own countries and advocate for change. This project opened my eyes to this violation of human rights in my own state of Massachusetts. The efforts of Zontans and other like-minded individuals resulted in the state amending a law in 2022, making it illegal for any individual to marry under the age of 18, regardless of parental consent. Working together, we will continue to build that better world for women and girls. Thank you for your interest in the Zonta Foundation for Women.
Hello, my name is Mary.